Sana for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
This is our own unique bench here at Parliament.
Thank you.
All right. So maybe to start us off, how easy was it for you as a committee, perhaps, to consider the budget 2025-2026?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you on the budget process. I've been in budget committee since I joined Parliament in 2017. So I have been familiar with the budget process, and there was nothing really unique about this one. It's the same process that we have done, because we have universal guidelines on how budget is done and how the consultations we need to make towards budget making, which includes public participation and engagement with the various government agencies that implement the budget. So we did that successfully, and we went to many counties to talk to Kenyans about their expectations in the budget. So I think the process was seamless, and to date we have done a very good budget that is very consultative. And as I assured the Kenyans when I took over as chairman, that one of the things I was going to ensure was to ensure that there's equitable distribution of resources across the country. I want to confess that we have done that by and large. Yes.
Now, talking about the equitable share, or rather how you did the budget, the equitable budget, one of the things that I heard from the members of Parliament as you had presented your report was that the budget was balanced. What exactly do they mean by the budget being balanced? You have been a member of the budget committee, as you said, throughout your parliamentary terms. When they say the budget is balanced, where were we going wrong initially, and how is it balanced now?
Balanced, it means that the projections that are in the budget are realistic. For example, one of the areas that affect our budget making process is that we normally do not project revenues accurately. Sometimes we say we are going to collect, let's say, 2.5 trillion, but in the end we collect less. So this time around, I think we have been more realistic about our revenue projections. Normally, Treasury projects their revenues, but we also, as in-house, Parliament in-house, we have our own consultants, experts. The Parliamentary Budget Office consists of many fiscal analysts and economists who also basically can write the whole budget on their own. So when they look at the economy, they also make their own projections. For the first time, Treasury has projected revenue less than what we have projected. In the past, normally, Treasury would project revenues at a certain position. Then when the report comes, our own parliamentary team says, that is over projection. But for the first time, what Treasury projected is less than what we projected. So, and normally, our projection is always accurate. What we project as Parliamentary Budget Office, in the end, is what normally KRA collects. So we think that the budget is balanced because it is falling within our realistic projections of revenue. Yes.
You say what Parliament projects is what KRA collects?
In most cases, what Parliamentary Budget Office projects, in the end is what normally KRA collects.
KRA collects.
But in the past, Treasury projects higher than what KRA normally can achieve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the projections for this year, maybe for the benefit of our viewer?
Yeah, Treasury projected in terms of ordinary revenue, Treasury projected 2.74
trillion.
Yes, but Parliamentary Budget Office projected 2.77 trillion. So you see, it's less.
It's less.
Yes. So we think that that is fair and realistic projection.
And that is what we shall go by, or the government shall go by.
So budget making is the work of Parliament. When what Treasury brings to us are just proposals.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is now what we present. That is now what is the budget. So, but the proposals from Treasury are what forms our benchmark for budget making. So we did not tamper with it much. From what Treasury projected, we increased the final report by about 10 billion.
Okay.
Upwards in terms of revenue.
In terms of revenue.
Yes.
Perhaps. So, which figures is the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury this afternoon going by?
He's going by our figure.
Because
which is our budget.
Yeah.
Remember, we went through the budget and tabled our budget.
Yes.
Which we went through up to yesterday, but one we did Committee of
Committee
Supply.
of Supply, yes.
Now, that is the report that he's going with. Because that is the actual report, that is the budget. He cannot come with a budget which is not in our report. Because if he makes a proclamation about an expenditure, and it does not into account what we have done as Parliament, then that cannot work. So what is coming to highlight is the budget that we have done as Budget Committee and we have passed on the floor of the House.
And at what point did you decide that this money has to be added? If the estimates that came from National Treasury were a bit lower and National Assembly amended or committee amended and raised it, what informs that particular amendment?
The other pressing budgetary needs. When Treasury brings their budget to us, we also go out and talk to Kenyans talk to many other players, including government agencies and departments. And then we look at other pressing needs that may have not been captured in the proposals of Treasury. Now we have to find a way of how we can address them. Like for example, remember when the Treasury estimates came before us, they did not factor in examination fee. And when we spoke to Kenyans, Kenyans told us that that is something that they would like to have in the budget. So as Parliament, we have to find a way of appropriating resources for that particular one. Also, you saw health workers were on the streets. And they came here several, they brought us
several times,
So again, as a listening Parliament, we had to do something. So we have to find a way of raising more revenue within the scope, within the framework, to address some of those challenging needs that may have not been captured in the Treasury proposals.
Yeah, actually that reminds me of the concerns that Kenyans usually have out there when the committees of National Assembly or Parliament do public participation, and then at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, have our views, have our opinions been actually considered? But what we've told us actually shows that which specific areas maybe saw the additions or received maybe the additions in the budget?
Largely across the board. We had additions in the infrastructure. There are some areas we went to, we found a need for certain projects, infrastructure support like in roads, that we could not wait. So we added money in the road sector, in the health sector, in the agriculture sector. Yeah, like when we went to Rift Valley, for instance, and even Nyanza and Western, most farmers, they want to diversify. They want to move from traditional crops they have been doing. They want to go to coffee and other areas. So we consider that we need to support those initiatives, so that those farmers can be able to start doing projects that are crops that are profitable. Then, of course, when we dealt with other things like land, you have seen a lot of land crisis in the country, where people are fighting for settlement schemes. So we also listened to them and said, let's allow Kenyans to settle. Let's look for money and provide for those votes. So we did the balancing across the board.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So we are looking at a budget of 4.2 trillion. And the additions that you put, because it was, so you can just say it's 4.2.
Is what makes it 4.2 trillion.
4.2 trillion. Last year was about 3.9 trillion.
We started at 3.9 trillion when after the Gen Z protest. The budget came down to 3.9 trillion. But we have been doing, subsequently we have been doing supplementary estimates. So largely, by the end of this year, our budget probably would be about around 4.1. If you look at the totality of the budget, including the two supplementary estimates which we have done, the budget has substantially grown to about 4.1 trillion. So if you look at that, where we are going to close the year on 30th of June, vis-a-vis where we are starting, the difference is not very much.
It's not very much.
Margin is very small.
But again, we also need to take much concern on also the budget ceiling. I don't know whether this one you are a bit keen on, also not to go too high. We have already surpassed. But again, how do we go about it?
We were very keen. In order to start the budget off at 4.2 trillion, there are so many things that we have to cut off. Like, unnecessary expenditures, including travelings. We have addressed that. We have looked at the budget in totality and tried to remove all those unnecessary expenditures. We wanted to focus more on development vote, because as you have seen, development vote as presented by Treasury, was about 707 billion. But the final report is about 721 billion. So we were trying to balance off and try to put more money on development.
On development. But
Yes.
did you achieve it still?
Yes, we did. We have grown the development vote from 707 to 721 billion.
To
We've grown it by about
721
15 billion.
15 billion.
Yes,
Oh, right.
Just
Oh,
by reallocating resources.
The resources.
And taking off resources from other sectors that are not necessary.
okay. But
Yes.
but still our expenditure is still high compared to the development in terms of percentage.
Expenditure is, yes, because you see, out of a 4.2 trillion budget, development takes 720 billion. The biggest expenditure actually is debt repayment.
Debt payment.
Yes, because interest on debt alone is about 1 trillion.
Oh, okay.
So that's the biggest problem
That's
actually.
the biggest problem.
Yeah, in the budget.
Okay, so now we talk about debt, and I understand that you now want to reduce external borrowing. This particular next financial year, the budget targets to reduce on external borrowing and focus more on domestic borrowing. Is that the case?
I don't think that's the focus. The fiscal deficit of about 867 billion will borrow about 500 billion locally and 277 billion externally.
Externally.
It does not mean that we are focusing on
Domestic.
local domestic borrowing. We are just balancing the debt portfolio, because you cannot have a debt portfolio where you are borrowing everything from external.
Okay.
External could have some challenging factors.
Because I'm looking at it from the angle or from the point of if we do external borrowing and we go the concessional way, and again we realize, the one of commercial or concession, maybe we can try and one of it has the higher interest, and we are now dealing with debt repayment, which has taken much of our expenditure. Are we coming locally? Are we doing domestic, so to try and go out of that?
Also, there are two types of loans. There's
Yeah.
multilateral and bilateral.
Yes.
Most of the countries that are supporting us, like US, basically through World Bank and China, they are also facing their own challenges. So they may not be able to give us resources that we need. The other option left is commercial loans. Commercial loans are very expensive. It's the problem
Okay.
we're having. The composition of our loan is such that commercial loans are so high.
Okay.
So we want to avoid commercial loans
All right.
in as much as we can.